Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. Happy New Year. I'm Michael Leboff, and joining me for this episode and every episode are my co-hosts, Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. And together, the three of us are going to try to handicap to the best of our abilities a 13-game slate on Tuesday night. The NHL is getting back on its usual Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday rhythm, thanks to the Winter Classic and all the holidays. And this is a fun one. A lot of fun games to break down. And as always, when the schedule gets this heavy, we like to start off with a bang with our favorite underdogs, and that's what we'll do. We have three different ones for your betting pleasure. We'll start with you, Nick. Your favorite dog for Tuesday night.
Yeah, I don't think it'll surprise anyone who's been paying attention to the pod and my rating lately that I think Carolina is a good bet at plus 110 in Madison Square Garden. This is just a price I'd probably play Carolina on versus any team right now, which sounds a little insane, but I just really think the way that they are playing right now, they're as long as Kochetkov holds up, I think you can make a case that this is right there with the absolute top teams in the league, which is kind of interesting because it feels like there's that like caveat for like a lot of the really, really good teams right now that like as long as the goaltender is decent. And I do respect that Shesterkin has completely found his game, and I think they'll probably roll him here. But this just still looks to me like I'm getting the price, like I'm getting an underdog price on a team that I fully expect to carry more of the play. So I think anything better than plus money here is great. I love the way Carolina's playing. They're defending so well. They've really let Kochetkov stabilize, and they look like that traditional Carolina team that we've seen just dominate every regular season and even last playoffs. I just think this is one of the league's best teams, and they're going to continue to show it in the back half. And you also got to love the way that the line, like right now, they actually look like they have some offensive punch. I think with Svechnikov back in the mix, maybe the power play can be a little better. So I just really like this team. I think they can definitely skate with the Rangers that even strength and control more of the play there. And I think it's going to take a pretty good Shesterkin performance or a rough Kochetkov performance to lose this one. So I think we're getting a good number here to get on the Canes.
Yep, I agree with you. I'm on Carolina as an underdog. When you look at a team trying to beat Carolina, you kind of concede the 5-on-5 battle, and you hope that they can win on the margins, and the Rangers can do that. We know that, but when it's this kind of price, you're asking the Rangers to win on the margins like quite a bit here. So yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. I'm on Carolina. Tim, any thoughts here before we move on?
Yeah, Nick, I saw you track this in the app earlier today, and I would say the reason the line is what it is because of kind of the goaltending uncertainty. I know Kochetkov's been better, but for me, I'll probably end up having a little taste on Carolina, but I am nervous about when you say margins. To me, I think goaltending, and I just don't have a ton of faith in like that matchup of Shesterkin against Kochetkov. He's been better, but I know this Rangers team. I mean, hey, even if Quick was in, I'd be like,
He's he's
this
been
is how
better
it's
and he
been.
hasn't had to do anything. I've been paying attention to this Carolina team quite a bit, and it's crazy how good I feel like they've been defending the last stretch here with just really asking him to do next to nothing outside of that Nashville game, which I guess that was a Ranta game anyways, which sucks for Ranta because that was probably their worst defensive performance in a while. But um, yeah, I think we just have to keep riding Carolina in this spot.
Yeah, I like their margins way better when they were playing the Leafs the other night than I do with like
Yeah,
I
and they
have
were catching Toronto in a good spot. That was a
Yeah.
pretty
right.
crazy price. Uh,
So
and I mean Martin Jones. We won't go into that this slate, but is Martin Jones really that much better than Kochetkov now?
I think it's
Right.
funny that we'll talk about it later. All right. My favorite dog. I like the Capitals, Knicks Capitals. They're plus 145 in Pittsburgh. The Penguins minus 175 here. Total of 6. It screams classic sell high spot on Pittsburgh. I think they did a pretty good job against the Blues and Islanders in keeping the games on script. Like they limited mistakes. There weren't many breakdowns. And even then, like they weren't able to put those two teams away. The Islanders had a really good chance to tie that game late. That Anders Lee missed an empty net. But like the Penguins to me are when you think of like a highly skilled team or a team that relies on skill, you think of them as decent front runners, a team that if the big guys are going, they should have no problem. But even with that, with the way that Pittsburgh's playing, with the big guys going for basically all season, they're still not doing that. And I like the Capitals' ability just to hang around and put some pressure on Pittsburgh here. There's a bet. Obviously, you're more likely to lose than win. That's why Washington's the underdog. But Washington's ability just to ugly it up is what makes them very appealing here, Tim. So I'll be on the Caps. Anything from you on Penguins and Caps? Sid versus Ovi.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I immediately saw this line and was like, oh, Caps, Caps, Caps. Like, love this price. But then I'm just so confused by Pittsburgh. I have no idea what I'm gonna get with them. I talked about certain teams that are blind spots just because I maybe don't watch them enough or compared to other teams like a St. Louis. But Pittsburgh, I do watch, and I still have a popsicle headache. I am so confused by them. So I see this line, I'm like, do I have Pittsburgh underrated? Like, wow, I can't get to minus 175. Someone help me out. I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, it looks close. Like I would say I would make the Pens minus 165. I would lean to the Caps. I don't know if we're quite getting it. Pittsburgh's playing pretty good. If you look, it's funny because the time that I really kind of beat this drum was ahead of the Toronto game, and it was so embarrassing because I wrote a whole thing about how they were defending better than people thought and how they actually haven't given up that many goals because we'd heard so much talk about how pathetic they were on that front. And then they lost 7-0, and I was like, oh my God. And then I've been vindicated because
since
all
then
the
they've been
games
good.
since then they've been giving up nothing. So I think they actually maybe are like kind of still flying under the radar a little bit, but also like in this kind of spot, like I feel like Washington is going to make it a competitive game, and everything that they've done well should help them hang around with Pittsburgh. And I do think that Pittsburgh's played quite a few tight games, right? It feels like outside of the one Islanders game, most of them have been really close, which supports playing Washington here. And then you look at Washington, that's all they do. So yeah, it feels like a game that I think will be more closely contested than this price kind of suggests. I do think if you wanted to play, you're playing Washington. With that said, I have no clue how to bet on the Caps. Every time I pass, it's just whatever decision I make is the wrong one. If I pass, I was going to have the right side. If we make a pick, it's the wrong one. So I don't know. I have like the worst juju with the Caps right now, but it's going to be competitive. I feel like they can hang around, and Kemper should be too. Like with lingering out, it does suck because he'd been so good, but Kemper should still be viewed as like a pretty good starter, right?
Yep.
So I think they can manage that loss, even though it seems so critical.
Like the game against the Islanders, the Capitals put up a little bit of a dud. I kind of just cross out because things just went weird with Lindgren getting hurt in the middle of the game or middle of the first period, and then Faribault right there too, getting hurt. And everything else still looks the same for the same story for Washington. They're just hanging around, and doing their thing. I will note that the Penguins, like you said, they do play a bunch of tight games. It's been 6 overtime games for their last 17. They have the 10th best points percentage, actually tied for 9th with Philadelphia and Dallas since Thanksgiving. So they have been better. It is a funny group of teams up there. It's Edmonton has been the best team by points percentage since Thanksgiving. Then it's Winnipeg, Vancouver, Arizona, the 2 New York teams, Rangers, Islanders, Predators, Avs, Flyers, and Penguins. I feel like a handful of those teams have just kind of been like derided, like Pittsburgh, because of one or two weird performances. When they're just picking up points here. So and Colorado is also on that list.
Yeah, and we talk about how marginal the league is right now, and I feel like the biggest way to like notice that is just some of these teams that are going on these runs and they're just going nowhere.
Yep.
And so many 3-point games. It's just I feel like it makes it easy to kind of, miss how much teams have kind of like picked up their play if you're just kind of staring at the standings. Like even something like Edmonton, the Kraken, you just don't even it's easy to like almost forget and not even realize if you really don't zoom in and actually kind of analyze what they've done well.
Let's be honest, this game's going overtime. Like this is overtime.
That's a good call. I think you could.
Like
yeah.
All right, Tim, your favorite underdog.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Calgary Flames here as slight dogs to the Minnesota Wild. These teams are almost identical, honestly. Calgary has 35 points. Minnesota has 36 points. So this game's in Minnesota, and then you get here, you're going, okay, Minnesota home ice. But the reason I'm happy to play the Flames here is Kirill Kaprizov. He's injured. He is their offense. He with a team that, at times struggles to score goals. He drives the play offensively, and also Gustafsson out as well. Minnesota is just way more banged up, and I don't think that that's being properly accounted for here. And that's why Calgary's an underdog play for me. It's simple as that. One guy shouldn't move the needle that much, but if there is a guy, I feel like it's what Kaprizov
it's
does.
two though.
So,
yeah.
Oh yeah,
to,
true. Yeah.
To support, because Gustafsson's their second most important, arguably their most, really,
Right.
the way he's been going. So, and I mean the overall situation too. Brodin and Zuccarello are both big pieces. I know the way Favors played really helps cover the Brodin absence, but I fully agree. I think this is a really good take. I think with who's actually playing in this game, this could be close to a pick 'em. Like, I really don't see how with Marc-Andre Fleury and this number makes sense to me. I think this is going to be a very closely contested coin flip type game. I think Markstrom's been really dialed lately. He's been excellent since he got back. Well, I shouldn't even say since he got back too. Really, just the last 8 weeks, he's been excellent. So I think you're getting a really good number to back what should be just a very close game. And I actually think I continue to raise how good maybe the Wild might be if they ever get healthy and have all their bodies pulling in the right direction. We'll see. I think the Wild, I don't want to slight them here. I think it's just who's out of the lineup is going to make it really tough to hang in, and it's just going to be a much more competitive game than this price suggests.
They kind of can't catch a break with the injuries. Every time it gets going again,
it's been bad.
Down.
Yeah, I think if more people really paid attention and cared about the Wild, you'd probably hear about it a little more, because they actually really have recently. I feel like we've been hearing a lot about how good Faber's been to help cover that, but it's been tough.
Okay, big board time. I like the Flames too there. You convinced me there. Let's look at the big board. Like I said, 13 games to choose from. Already knocked 3 of them off in the underdogs. Let's start with the Bruins and Blue Jackets up next. The Bruins are the second biggest favorite on the slate. They are minus 240 on the road. CBJ right around plus 200, and 6.5 total. I look at it this way. There's no way I'm betting Boston in this spot as this chunky of a road favorite. And I could be convinced on Columbus, but they are, oh man, they are so frustrating to bet. Even in that win against the Maple Leafs, which the reason we liked the Blue Jackets was hey, they could get 15 shots on goal and still be in this game, and that's exactly what happened. But it's tough, man. It's tough with this team. They blow leads. You couldn't believe it. We talked about teams like the Flyers and the Capitals. Their floor is just so high because everyone seems to be pulling the rope in the same direction. You just can't trust Columbus to do that. You can say they're scrappy and whatever, but it's just a team that's not on the same page. And Werenski being out obviously dings them up. But all of that said, Nick, I can kind of be convinced here on Columbus because it's more about, I just don't think Boston should be this high.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of, you're coming out of the New Year's Eve break too, which I don't want to rate too much, but I feel like it's a little scary when you're talking about a team like Boston, huge favorite coming into Columbus. Maybe you don't know what you're going to get. I wouldn't bet Boston here. The Werenski injury really sucks, but they gave some big minutes to Jurčić last night. So that's sweet, because I really feel like he deserves it and he has the upside to be one of their better defenders. So it's I almost wonder if there will be some spots, especially if they lose some games bad, now that Jenner's out too, and people are talking about how insanely bad the injury list is. But we've talked about this all year. There's not Werenski's really one of the only guys who's a significant needle mover in terms of being much, much better than the guys who are going to play. I like when Laine's out and we get better prices on Columbus as a result. And I think kind of the same thing with Jenner, that they have the guys that can hang around here. So I don't know if I love it. I feel like Boston's never a fun team to fade. It seems like they always clean up the points they're supposed to get, but I don't hate the number on the Blue Jackets here. I think they'll definitely probably play to their price and then some in this spot.
Yeah, no chance I'm laying it with Boston or even thinking about them puck line. They just they rely too much on the goaltending, kind of too much on Pasternak, which means, they're an interesting candidate to fade, but you just think of Columbus and you guys started talking about it. Columbus is going to do too many things to lose the game, and Boston's DNA, especially in the regular season, is going to do too many things to win the game, which makes it not
That's
as
very true. This is
as
like
a
a
right. Like they just the number is almost like you can't. Yeah, they're Boston's way better, but the number is like a DNA play that just Columbus does not profile as a good match to exploit the things that Boston is weaker in certain areas. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to fade Boston, I think, in the next couple weeks, and this to me just it isn't quite it for me yet. Even though I certainly wouldn't play on the Bruins, so probably a pass.
Yeah, I guess we've done a little better fading them lately too, the Bruins. But yeah, this is like the nut bottom worst team at figuring out how to win games, except for maybe like Ottawa and Buffalo versus like the best team at just finding a way to win the
Yep.
close ones. So there's that for sure.
Okay, Montreal and Dallas up next. The Stars are minus 298 hosting the Habs here, plus 240. 6.5 total. I say kind of the same situation. It's like I've got no betting interest in Dallas, obviously here. The Habs still are doing enough things well that they're always going to be interesting at these kind of prices, and the goaltending has been good all season. And you're looking at a situation against Dallas with Scott Wedgwood where you can make an argument that a good argument that Montreal has that edge. It's Montreal or nothing, but I think with the size of the slate, I'd rather just go elsewhere than the Habs here, Nick.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that ultimately this looked more or less fair, and that I would definitely agree. I wouldn't want to lay minus 300 on Dallas here in this spot. Just on January 2nd feels like kind of just not something interesting.
No, it feels sleepy. I kind of wanted to play the under 6.5, but you look at Dallas, they do score, so it's kind of hard to.
Oh, they score like I mean they're deep now, and the way Duchesne's fit in so well, things are really looking up. They've kind of gotten relatively bad. I shouldn't even say relatively. They've gotten the like pretty poor goaltending even out of Ettinger when he was there. It hasn't been amazing, and they're still where they're at. Like the last month, they have an 884 save percentage, and you don't even really notice because they're scoring their way out of it and they're winning games. So it's just kind of slides under the radar, but they are kind of fighting through some middling goaltending for sure.
Yeah, this slate's too good for me to even try and find an angle here because I really just don't.
Okay. Chicago and Nashville up next. Chicago plus 220, the Preds minus 270, and a total 6.5. I think we're kind of getting to the point now with the Blackhawks where you're basically asking yourself the question, is the price high enough for Connor Bedard to just keep this team in a game, and then for them to get lucky? And I think that against a team like Nashville, who's been better than expected, but still the ceiling isn't and floor aren't high enough where you can kind of see Chicago hanging around here if the goaltending holds up. That's a big if against Juice Saros, though. So I'm gonna pass here, Nick. I want to bet this. It's similar to the Habs and Stars. Like I want to make a more compelling argument for the Hawks, but it's even harder to do, even though that their opponent is lesser.
I actually on this one was kind of close to thinking of laying it with the Preds in some fashion. I don't know if I think they'll disappoint here. I think it's kind of reminds me of this Kraken Predator spot, or sorry, Kraken Blackhawk spot where it's like, I mean, the Preds really continue to impress. They kind of slapped the Caps the other night again, and every time I watch them, they look more creative offensively than I think they're getting credit for. They have a lot of guys that can can generate, and they're getting legitimate star play out of O'Reilly and Forsberg. So I actually think I could see them paying off. I feel like a bit of juju when you see like a team get slapped the way the Hawks did and just completely no show last time out. I'd be interested to see if we ran one of these things they do on like the NFL where team gets blown out this bad and the next week the spread is always getting they're so likely to cover because people overinflate it. But I don't know if there's as much correlation with that sort of thing in the NHL. 82 games with the bounce back effect, but to me it just feels like the Preds should be able to control play to this level. I think they can pay it off. Saros in the net. It's just, yeah. I kind of like this Preds team. I feel like I'm kind of continue to be impressed when I watch them.
Yeah, for me, the hard part is the fact that Nashville is a good team. They're definitely not Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado in the division, but they're certainly better, I think, than like a St. Louis, Chicago. So I kind of want to play Nashville more in like dog spots than seeing this big number next to their name. It's just the Chicago's so thin. Like I think
They're terrible.
so much has to go
They're
right.
absolutely terrible.
So much
I would
has
love
to
to
go
see them play San Jose in a series. It'd be so fun.
right. They
And to
should.
be fair, the Hawks, like I do think the Korchinski injury did hurt a lot because it was just like who's playing now, but still they're bad.
I have no problem with puck line, honestly. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I look at it and I'm like, I feel like it's probably a slightly better than 50-50 chance that the Preds can blow them out here, but I don't know. It's not a great play on the slate, I suppose.
Yeah, especially with this next game we're going to talk about because you two like the New York Islanders. They're plus 145 in Colorado. Avs minus 165 and a total of 6 for this one. Interesting decision from Lane Lambert against the Penguins on Sunday night to health bomb Pierre Engvall to make sure that Matt Martin had a spot in the lineup. Didn't work out somehow. It's a weird one that one didn't work out. I continue to think like the Islanders they've been stretched so thin that the level is just going to start coming down on from the high guys like Dobson and Barzell and Horvat. They've been asked to do so much that just eventually their numbers will come down a bit. And against the Capitals, we saw the middle of the lineup step up with Pajot and Gauthier having huge games, but it's tough to rely on that. It does become more palatable when they're at this kind of number against this kind of team, a team that the depth is just not there. You can see the Islanders' depth having some success here against Colorado down the lineup, but defensively, like giving up chance after chance when Nate McKinnon's on the ice is a little scary. I would lean towards the Islanders here, but I'm much happier to kick back and listen to you two talk about the Isles on the road here, Nick.
I think it's a decent spot on the road here. Like Georgiev has just been such a disaster that
add them to the list. Add them to like the list of teams that like
it's crazy. One of my pet peeves is when I hear people armchair GMing about what these guys should have done with goalies. And I'm like, there's no one knows what the hell is going on with these goalies. And there's like 3 that people know for sure would be good if you traded for them. And they probably wouldn't even turn out to be good if you traded for them, is what it feels like. So it's just like, what do you do? And I think that's the interesting thing with Colorado right now is it's going to be tough if he can't figure it out to make a move and just really come up with anything better. And I just think anytime you're talking about this kind of a number with that kind of goaltending volatility, the Avs you talk about the Isles being carried by their big dogs. The Avs is ridiculous. There's like 5 names doing everything on this team right now, and credit to all those guys. But I just feel like you're getting a pretty good number here for what could be a fairly competitive game. And then you've got the upside of just Sorokin completely stealing it or Georgiev falling apart. I think it's not a bad number to take a shot with the Isles.
Yeah, they just profile as good underdogs, right? You're going to get good goaltending. This team, you said it, Nick, the Colorado's been asked, their stars been asked to do a lot as well. And so I don't look at them and I'm like, terrified to fade them because of that. The Islanders have a massive goaltending edge, and I get, that a good plus price next to their name. To me, I saw it off the bat when the numbers dropped, and I was interested to see if you guys saw it the same way, because I mean, I feel like I'm seeing the bait on the hook here, and I'm like, I kind of want to bite. I kind of want to bite, just because how can you not when you know you have a goaltending edge in Colorado again? They're not deep Colorado like Colorado of the past.
Yeah, and I should throw off. I want to do better. Let's make this a New Year's goal in that we're bad about always talking about the prices and not actually saying the numbers. So the Islanders right now are as high as plus 158. I would go down to plus 145 on this. I'm going to make that a thing that I'm going to do this year and try to not just broadly talk about it, because the numbers change and then people are like, well, what the hell were you guys talking about when you referenced this? Like,
I
so
do it on purpose to give myself an out. So, but you have.
But sometimes you don't want that out. Sometimes we're talking about it as plus 190, and then the day of the game is plus 160, and people are like, good pick. And it's like, well, we thought it would win a small percentage of the time more than it did. So
You have a slightly
yeah.
bigger following for that, so that's
Well, and I know a lot of people follow in the app where it's a little less complicated. You can see what I posted and so on. But some people don't, and we're in a podcast format here, so I'm gonna try to cater to that more.
I love it. Yeah, I think that one thing too that continues to maybe a little bit overlooked is that the Islanders do generate scoring chances. They've been giving them up, but they do generate them. So that could exacerbate the goaltending issues for Colorado a bit. And Nick, you touched about the goaltending, and one thing I've been thinking about, and this is just a broader hockey thought, is that when it comes to goaltending, it's a zero-sum game. If I've got this goalie, it means you don't have him. And I think that some of these general managers who've held on to two, and Lamoriello's the first one to come to mind, Sweeney in Boston. It's such a big deal that they've done that, because it means that Linus Ullmark doesn't play for New Jersey, or it means that Semyon Varlamov doesn't play for Pittsburgh, right? Like it's something that I think people just don't think about when they talk about the bigger picture with general managing.
Two good options is huge. We've talked about it a lot. It helps you win the standings race. You get into the playoffs. I mean, Boston didn't. They probably could have gone to swimming last year, but that's kind of besides the point. It gives you options when one guy falls apart that maybe you didn't expect. So there's definitely an added edge to that. But I mean, yeah, it's crazy thinking what maybe like Vejmelka could draw some of these guys who are on reasonable contracts, because it is going to be so hard for some of these teams to make moves to bring in a goalie, even with half retained. It's going to be really tough. So,
Leboff, if I have $10, that means that you have $0. So why am I giving you $5 and I have $5? Like,
it's funny how it gets talked about. Like, well, they have to give up these goalies. Like you can't have two. You got and most of it emanates from one certain city, and we just won't go down there.
Well, and I think it depends on the situation too. Like the Coyotes, I really think, given the market, if they don't try to trade Vejmelka, it's going to be a mistake, because he's so valuable. Like I feel like one of these teams is going to get desperate and overpay. There's like 5 cup contenders that have horrible goaltending. I feel like at some point you've got to be able to work out. And if you're Arizona,
it's going to be wild. Like, the deadline's going to be wild with that, right? The prices. Yeah. Whoever sets the market on what the goalie market is going to be is going to be wild.
Peter Mrazek could go back to either Carolina or Toronto for like triple what the Maple Leafs paid for him to go away, and now they like.
It's crazy.
It's feasible that they would pay
better cook
a piece
and round out his team.
Yeah,
bring in some new guys for trading.
Bennington, Hofer, like this is crazy. Okay, Flyers and Oilers. I will say the Flyers were right there with the Capitals in terms of my favorite underdog. I like Philly here as a plus 160. Pooch, Edmonton minus 192, total 6.5. The Oilers are rolling. 13 out of the last 16 they've won. They've won 5 in a row. They are just pasting teams. They have that look. They have that look. Yeah. That game, and I know it was the Sharks, and I don't even want to talk about the missing the same game parlay that I built because McDavid hit the post. But that from 45 seconds into that game, I texted you guys. It's just like, Jesus Christ, because you could just tell like they're back, and I know Evander Kane hasn't been good, but he comes out of the lineup, and they were just able to kind of weather that for a game and look the same. Nothing I feel like every little thing that went wrong for them early on in the year would just turn into a snowball into an avalanche, and now it's not. All that said, I think it's time to sell high. And this Philly team has just been so effective 5-on-5. I know their plays tapered off a bit here. Last 10 games, they're below break even in terms of expected goals and scoring chance numbers. But I do trust them to give the effort needed to slow this game down. It's a game that you could see go 7-2 Oilers, but if Philly hangs around here, I think that they're certainly live. So they've been such a good underdog. Why not go back to them here, Tim?
Oh, it's so hard. This is the definition of styles make fights, right? I feel like we'll know pretty early which team is getting the game to play the way that they want it to be played. My question is just, can I trust Philly to capitalize on Oiler mistakes enough? And I'm like very lukewarm on believing that, because it could, it can be out of hand in a hurry, but it also, can just be a complete, slog in Philly's favor, and 2-2 game, 1-1 game. And at that point, like, yeah, sure, I'll gladly be happy to be on the dog, but I'm just, I don't think.
Yeah, I think
It's so
that
tough.
uncomfortable feeling you're feeling is exactly the signal you should look for when you want to bet against the Oilers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a lot easier when the Oilers weren't playing well.
Well, even then, it was just like you're hoping the goaltending would fall
Yeah.
apart, because they
Right.
really were playing good. And I feel like I've always said this, and now it's like, holy crap, this team is crushing people. They had a really bad period versus LA, and LA, I mean, we've talked about how good they've been. I thought the next two periods are about as impressive as it gets, because that game was obviously circled on the Kings calendar. They were ready to roll. They had in LA, if anything, the scheduling spot favored them a lot, I would say. And the Oilers just took it to them for two periods. They had no answers once they turned it on. And that was, if anything, the closest game the Oilers have played in a while. So I don't know. I think this looks about fair. I feel like Edmonton can win this 65% of the time. So who knows? I mean, you should see a response from the Flyers, I think, after that Calgary game. But I don't know. I'm pretty high in this Edmonton team here. It's crazy how, I feel like this is almost one of the biggest disagreements between people who just look at the standings still and are like, in all the replies talking shit about the Oilers. And then you like look at the way they're actually playing right now, and they just look so good. To talk about like their flaws, they're so minor compared to what every single team has, right? Like Cody Ceci doesn't look great. And you can talk about how it's idiotic that they weren't able to draft some of the pieces they need and how they arrived at this point. But I still think if you look at the totality of their roster with how Bouchard is playing, it's just a really, really good team. Aside from the fact that they have, I mean, even then, Calvin Pickler's hanging in. They're winning with him. So I think in time, it could be a problem that they basically have one goalie they want to play. But yeah, I think the Oilers can definitely make a nightmare matchup for someone in the wild card.
Yeah, you're right, Nick, but their margin just feels still thinner because of it's stabilized, but it's not even.
That's top dogs in the NHL, though. It's kind of like, you look at the standings. I feel like every team kind of has question marks, really.
Yeah, we said that coming in.
Even like Vegas, I'd say probably is the least question marks, right? Which seems kind of crazy because they're not playing.
I would say LA
right now.
I would say LA.
Yeah, true. It's LA or Vegas, I think. But I mean, Vegas just isn't playing really right now. But I think everyone kind of knows they're half engaged and they don't have Shea Theodore and they're whatever. It's just you kind of just got to grant them a pass. Like, what do you need to see from them? Everyone's still there that matters.
Ottawa and Vancouver up next. The Sens plus 140 in British Columbia. It's the Canucks coming back at minus 166. A total here of 7. And my God, I want to do it. I really want to bet the Sens here.
Hell yeah.
I think the number is good. This team, like, I know it's not going to happen, but I kind of want to like just go all in on Ottawa in a St. Louis Blues 2019 fashion here. Because I keep coming back to this, like, just March 15th, let's call it. And I was sitting there being like, they're 6 points out. We should have seen this coming because they have the talent. Shabbat's back. They just need one of these goalies. And we've seen Forsberg and Korpisalo both have stretches over the past few seasons where they've been really good. Like, and you called them one of the nut bottom teams in terms of just knowing how to win and managing situations, and that's true. But if it clicks at some
They've
point,
got a few. Hey, and we're, because I feel like every time people are always like, oh my God, they're doing it again. I'm 3 for 3 on my last 3 Senators bets. I'm going to put that out there. So I think that.
And they've not come
they're
against
winning games.
They've not come
They're
against
coming.
slouches either. Like I know that the Sabres won whatever, but that's not supposed to be an on paper slouch. It's also a team that they're going to need to pass. Like that game was important for Ottawa. So
they've never not looked competitive though. They've just been
right.
amazing at losing.
Right.
Like
right.
just the whole game, but like that's what makes it so easy to get sucked into this team is like
I know.
Every time you're like, oh, plus 140, they're gonna be there. They're gonna be up 2-0 10 minutes in, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
I mean, I just read it. I'm just going back as we're sitting here. Forsberg still had to make 45 saves in their 5-1 win over Buffalo.
That's crazy. But they were up pretty comfortably a lot of it.
Fair, right? I mean, it's just fun. It's funny,
but
right?
still, like to your point, like if you're the Senators and your Achilles heel has been seeing games out, you shouldn't even the score effect shouldn't matter. You should just be dominating teams.
True,
like that.
Because you
right?
look
like,
at that Coyotes game, like the second Buffalo made that game 2-1, I was like, oh God, here we go. Because every time we circle these like good Senator spots, I feel like half them they've been up like 2-0, and I'm like, oh, this could be the one that's like a nice no sweat win, and then it's not. They always have to let the other team push back and just sit there as they do nothing. But I think we've maybe seen the worst of it for Ottawa. I don't know if we've seen the worst of it for Buffalo. And
no, Buffalo.
I didn't actually watch that whole game as closely as I would have liked to, but it felt like it wasn't that much of substance when I talk about that many shots. Maybe later on they got there. I don't know. It seemed like, and that has been a thing in Buffalo.
It's just funny.
Year.
It's just funny. They have to they can't just put the clamps on someone and be like, we won 5-1, we did it. Like, it's still not right. Like,
right.
There's no reason. They have no excuse to like, hey, we're up 5-1. Let's let up in some scoring chances here. Or even if it's a shot from 45 feet out, they have no excuse. But with all that said, yeah, I'll be playing the Senators because I'm a complete sucker. And I just said in the same breath, right? Oh, we can't play Columbus because they do everything it takes to lose, and Boston does everything it takes to win. This season, Vancouver's done everything it takes to win. 100%. Ottawa's done everything it takes to lose.
Right.
And so if I want to stick to that mantra, I'd say stay away from this game. But I still believe in the Senators for some idiotic reason.
Well, and if you look at, this is going to surprise absolutely no one, and I would 100% agree that the Canucks are doing things aside from this that aren't reflected in the numbers. But the Sens have, they're at a 52.7% expected goals since the start of December. The Canucks are at 50%. So I get that that's very marginal. The Canucks have, arguably the best goaltender in the league. They make up for that in other ways. I'm just saying, it is an interesting comment when you talk about that large of a sample and a team that's plus 140.
Right.
Even if they have no idea how to win and they have worse goaltending, but it is kind of crazy to think that.
Yeah, and in the spirit of what you were saying earlier, Nick, about giving out the numbers, I would say plus 140 is about it. Like I wouldn't go any lower than this on Ottawa here.
And that is with Shabbat out too, which is another very relevant.
Right. Yeah, he comes to save the season. Okay, before we get to best bets, we'll wrap up with the Red Wings and Sharks in the tank. Detroit minus 192, San Jose plus 160, total 6.5. Reluctantly, with all due respect to our friend Mr. Javier Jose, I'm gonna pass here and not take the bait on the Sharks, Nick.
Yeah, I think I could see this being one that Detroit comes in and maybe has like kind of a big statement win and gets their 2 points. They still got the offensive firepower to expose the Sharks. I was close on this with wanting to back the Wings, but they're in kind of a rut. I don't know. Maybe a bit of a get right spot. I thought they were pretty hard done by versus Boston at times, but I don't know. Have we seen the worst of it for Detroit? I feel like maybe we have. It's kind of crazy. Even as a bit of a Detroit doubter early on. I didn't think it would get to this. This is crazy.
Yeah, I would need 175 plus on San Jose. I can't. It's too for this team. It's no. I need a
It
big
feels like
number.
a good one for Detroit to show up and get their 2 points with how everything's gone for so long and now they're finally healthy again. And the Sharks are pretty much just back to getting caved in.
Yeah. It really was fun for a while there with San Jose though.
Well, yeah, Lebo, plenty of other opportunities we are going to have to bet San Jose or the San Jose Sharks.
That's right.
Plenty of other chances.
That's what anybody new listening to the show would want to hear. Oh, these guys are just gonna keep betting the Sharks. All right, on to our favorite bets for Tuesday, January the 2nd. Tim, you can get us started here.
But yeah, the San Jose Sharks, Freudian slip there. Winnipeg Jets -130 playing Tampa Bay. Am I missing something here with this line? The Jets I'm looking at -130. They're way better than the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I've been a guy that's like, hey, like maybe Tampa Bay is not dead yet. Like hang in there. They still have Vasilevsky. The Jets, talk about being pretty close to a complete team. The way that they've picked it up without Kyle Connor is extremely impressive. I think that it's very generous here that they're only -130. They're flat out better than Tampa Bay Lightning, and I think it's by more than the home ice here.
Yeah, I like the Jets. I think you set it up well. I think we can feel pretty safe to say that Winnipeg's just not going to get the betting respect that other teams who post similar records would, because they're Winnipeg. Their preseason priors are a little bit lower than teams like Dallas or Colorado, Edmonton, etc. Winnipeg has the third best points percentage in the NHL. Here we are on January 2nd, tied with Dallas. They have allowed the second fewest goals, and they are still as high as 30-1 to win the Stanley Cup. Like, if you put together this kind of statistical portfolio, and I'm talking like surface level, usually I feel like the market will kind of catch up a little quicker than they do on the Jets. So, yeah, I think Winnipeg is fine here as a home favorite. I like the Jets. Anything on Jets and Bolts here, Tim? Nick?
No, I didn't really have much. It feels like maybe a bit of a letdown spot, but I agree with everything you said. I think the Jets are definitely not a bad Cup future at all. They look great. If there's anything, it's crazy to look and see like they're right there in this division race. Like it's still close because it does feel like it's kind of in the Jets running to like their peak potential, which does also display that they actually have better depth than the other teams potentially now. And Hellebuck has been absolutely insane for the last month. He's just on fire. So there's definitely that part of it. But it's kind of crazy. You look and the Avs are still, I mean, they won't be, I guess, if Jets win one of the next two games, but they're right there with them. It's insane. But yeah, I think the Jets are nothing in this spot.
They're so much deeper than people give them credit for.
Yep.
Like your middle of the ice is Scheifele, Nemestikov, Lowry. Like,
yeah. And the Lightning too it's just kind of like you look and it's like, where are they gonna get that much better right now? As much as we're used to them being so good, like I think Cirelli could show more. Stamkos is really not going very well.
Stamkos, once Sergachev comes back, like Stamkos for sure. But you're right.
But a lot of it is just like they're not.
Yeah.
They like and point
Kucherov could Kucherov pick up his level, please?
Yeah, exactly. You've got one guy, he's doing his job. There was a point when the Lightning had that like 30-point year, and they were so absurdly stacked. And at the time, I thought it was kind of unjust that Kucherov was the MVP. And now this year, I'm like, okay, maybe I was just wrong back then because he is just carrying them, especially when you just look at how many guys are playing kind of below expectations.
Revenge games for Nemestikov and Michael Eyssimont, if you want to go that route. Look out.
Your guy,
the Winnipeg, the Winnipeg Tampa Bay rivalry in full swing here. My favorite bet, I like the Kings as a short favorite at home against the Maple Leafs. Toronto's +110. That doesn't make sense to me in LA with the goaltending situation. Dennis Hildeby's been called up. He will play one of these back-to-backs, and his numbers in the AHL are good. I'm assuming it's going to be against the Ducks because the Ducks are so much worse than the Kings. That said, though, like the Kings are, do we feel pretty comfortable saying the Kings are not a lot better, but better than Toronto? Like this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This line
I
says
think so.
This line says it's a pick 'em on neutral ice.
Which is even
Yeah.
close. That's so this line jumped off the page for me.
I think it's closer than you guys, but I still think that the Kings
Yeah.
deserve a bigger favorite. I didn't think it was like insane. I would make the Kings like minus 145.
Just think of all do a quest, take a piece of paper, write Toronto, write LA, draw a line in the middle, write all the question marks you have on Toronto, and then write all the question marks you have on the LA.
Yeah.
Kings.
I do wonder though if there's almost going to be, but there isn't even. I just think some of the commentary, and this is just classic,
Toronto
living here, but people are making it sound like Toronto is out of the playoffs and like a joke. And it's like when they have Jones going, that's the funny thing though. When they have their very unconvincing starter in the net right now, I still think they're probably power rating higher than most people would assume. Like people are talking about like, do we fire the coach? Like, why would you fire the coach? They're in 10th and they've had one goalie just be completely unplayable, and they're higher than that when 10th in the league, I should say, and they were higher than that when he went down. Like I think people might be starting to be like a little too low on them, but I agree. This is like the Kings are a really good team, and they're playing with Martin Jones.
You're probably right, but I think people are too high on the Leafs being like, okay, they've got their guy in goal. Like it's not going to be Sammy tonight because it's going to be Martin Jones. Like that's what doesn't make any sense to me. It's not like Joseph Woll or Curtis Joseph or Felix Potvin are their goalies right now. It's Martin Jones. Like if this was a game on October 20th and Samsonov and Woll were out and Martin Jones was playing, we'd be like, you got to play the Kings here. You got to play it. But
sure.
The perception has changed so much because Jones has been okay for a few games here, but that I think that's what maybe the market's missing. I like LA, and I think that there's room for this line to grow to like minus 150-ish on the Kings, who the depth too is just I don't think a question here.
The Leafs, don't get me wrong, are still like a good regular season team and can get plenty of points. Games go to overtime. They have like a clear skill advantage, but LA's just in a different class right now. They're, whether it's 2, 3, whether it's one class, 2 classes, whatever the difference is, they're a class above the Leafs.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Leafs are where they're at in the standings, and some people are just like I think that's
fair.
11th, and I think like I continue to power rate them like right there. That's what they are when they don't have Samsonov in goal. That's a whole different world when you have a goalie who can't save anything, and they're the only team you look at. This is just like going to be a classic rant for me, but you look at like Carolina and Edmonton and the Devils and all these teams that are so good, and everyone who like follows closely knows it. It feels like they're the only one who's getting completely shredded for the nights where their goalie just lost them the game. If you know what I mean. Like they're the only one where it's like
the Devils are catching it down here. Like in this area, but you're right. Like but that's just the nature of the market. Like they're always gonna.
They're easy to hate. Yeah, is the reality of it.
they're a cringy group. They are a cringy group. My favorite Leaf is a Marley right now. That's Samsonov. I miss him. Come on back, Sammy.
Hey, it makes me sad in a way.
You know what's funny is
I was pumped to see him bounce back last year.
Just to kind of keep the thread of the goaltending going. I knew nobody was going to claim him, but I was like, I could kind of see like one of the drags, like the Sharks or the Ducks, being like, let's pick this guy up, see if we can rehab him, get his numbers up, and then we'll flip him at the deadline.
It wouldn't be insane to do.
Yeah.
He's such a. I mean, all goaltending is like, I think, so mental. You need to be in such a rhythm and reading it, and knowing where you're going and so on. But Sammy's always been like this. I said this to you before he went to Toronto last year. I was like, I think he's a great buy low option because when he's dialed, you can see how good he is. But I think now that seeing this whole complete collapse again, everyone's just like, okay, let's take a guy. That's it.
Let's take a guy who, tends to be really hard on himself and put a lot of pressure on himself. Let's put him in Toronto. And then let's take another guy, Jack Campbell, who puts a lot of pressure on himself already. Let's put him in Toronto. It's perfect, right?
It is nuts. Like the drop off each, like those two guys. It's just, and I know Campbell's has come post Toronto, but it's been existential as much as it's been hockey. It's crazy. All right, let's wrap up the show here. Nick, your favorite bet. It's a little depressing to hear it.
Oh yeah, I like the Panthers at -155 in Arizona. I'd play them down to -160. I'd say maybe 165, right around there. This is a completely healthy Florida Panthers team versus a Arizona team. Every win feels like such a grind right now, and they really are just kind of falling off. Their results under the hood are really not that of a playoff team lately. They're really scrappy, and that Colorado win we can't talk about enough. But I also just think with how well-rounded the Panthers look, they're humming heading into this game. We talked about that little, lull where they got shut out twice in a 3-game span or whatever it was, and how it's just really bad puck luck. I continue to look at this team, and they're one of the most well-rounded teams in the league. With Bobrovsky in goal, he's been really sharp. The blue line looks excellent, 1 through 6. It's really complete, and offensively, they're excellent. They look awesome. They've got a bunch of stars pulling on the rope, and then if anything, you've got more upside coming because I think Tkachuk is due to start filling the net a little more. I really like the way they're made up. I think that they can definitely deserve to be a bigger favorite in this spot when we're. I didn't quite. I was a little surprised this one's not bigger. I think it deserves to be bigger, and that it'll probably get there when you really kind of look at the way Arizona's been winning. So it's not a lot of fun. I'll be happy if the Coyotes got it out relative to losing a normal bet, but I think that the Panthers deserve to be a bigger favorite here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
convince me.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass here, but I do tend to agree with you. I want to keep rooting for this Arizona team, and I talked about best record since Thanksgiving, and Arizona's right there. It's been
it's
by hook
crazy.
or by crook with them. 11-5 in their last 16. So
yeah, and you talk about we got to add them to the list of teams gutting it out because that Avalanche win was just amazing. That was
we love them.
Best win of the year for sure.
Yeah, Leboff, the reason you're not betting it is because we still got to root for this Arizona team. But I go more into a Nick's corner here. It's a win-win. I'm gonna bet Florida at I think it's kind of a cheap price for what I think them in LA right now for me is the class of the league, and so feel relatively cheap. I don't know, maybe it's that home ice at Mullet. That's with this price, could be that hard ice down there.
That's some good crisp ice. And the Panthers are going to take advantage of
it. All right. For more ice talk and betting talk on the NHL, you can catch us again Wednesday morning for a short slate, and then back again for a pretty deep one on Thursday. For Nick Martin and Tip Kalinowski, I'm Michael Leboff. Thank you again for listening to Line Change. We hope you had a happy new year, and we will see you again 24 hours.